we're waiting on people making this huge bus, making no one else is coming. We're not taking that. So this bus is like, I'm not forever. I gotta sit there. I just have to. Wait, I understood. So this your bus? I got on the bus. I'm taking the bus. This is over here.
Yeah, ours, yeah. Apparently at first mine.
Guys, we'll get started. Coach is going to have a few words for us to get things started, and then we'll bring each of these guys up to announce their decisions. Coach, it's all yours.
Well, I want to thank everybody for being here today. Wish everybody a happy new year. You know, I'm really proud to be standing up here with these three young men to share with you, you know, their decisions about, you know, their future as football players. But I also want to say a few words about, you know, these guys. You know, I'm very proud of the way these guys have represented the program, not only as the way they played on the field, but the kind of, you know, character as people, the academic success that they have. Both Will and Bryce has graduated, and Jahmyr is on track to graduate. These guys showed tremendous leadership and character to make a decision to play in the Sugar Bowl, which I think impacted the entire team with the example that they set and the how they cared about their teammates. You know, one being the most inspirational player, one being the most valuable player, and all three being great contributors, you know, to the team all year. You know, these guys have made significant accomplishments to the program. You know, Will and Bryce have been a part of a national championship team, 2 SEC championship teams, and have contributed in a very positive way to a whole lot of wins here and extending, you know, the 10-win seasons for us to 15 years. But these guys have been great ambassadors for the program, but they've also been great ambassadors for the sport. And I think the example that they set can be something that can have a tremendous impact and effect on young people, you know, coming up in sports to make good choices and decisions about what they do for their team and how they represent their team, you know, in a first-class way. So all three of these guys have, you know, sort of top round grades. So we're excited about their opportunities and their future that they can have, you know, at the next level. And each one of them will come up here and speak. Now, just so we make it clear, there may be other guys who make choices and decisions in the near future about what they do. And when those things come out, we'll certainly make you aware of them as soon as possible. So we'll start out here with Will.
Good morning. First, I just want to give a huge shout out to the University of Alabama. These past 3 years have been the best years of my life. They've taken great care of me and my family. To Coach Saban, thank you so much for believing in me and giving me this opportunity. I was just a freshman, and he was on my butt every day at practice. To my coaches, my position coaches, Coach Sal, Coach Hustler, thank you for coaching me up, showing me a lot of love, showing my people a lot of love, getting me to this point. And to all my teammates, I thank y'all so much for believing in me, trusting in me, giving me confidence to be able to go out there and do my job and help you guys out, and just being able to respond to me as a good leader and all those good things. But I also have to shout out my family. They've been my backbone during this whole time, my mom, my dad, all my sisters, my aunties, my grandma, my granddad. I love you guys so much. Thank you for all the love and support, the good times, the bad times, the hard times. You guys stood by my side, waking up at 3 a.m. and crying in the morning. Y'all was always there for me. I appreciate you guys. I have to give all the glory to God. Thank you to Josh, Alex, Sid, EP, all the staff that work here. It speaks volume to the people that's here, because not only did they take care of me, but they really took care of my family. And if you know me, I'm really big on family. And for them to open us with welcome arms and help us like that and love on us, it means the absolute world to me. To all the media guys, thank you guys for being so respectful all the time, every time I was up here. Thank you guys for treating my family with respect every time you seen them somewhere out in public. You guys are very appreciated. I just want to thank the University of Alabama again. Y'all will always hold a special place in my heart. And with that being said, I will be declaring for the 2023 draft. Thank you, and roll tide.
Good morning. First of all, I would like to thank Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Without him, none of this would be possible. I would like to thank my family, my grandma, my aunt, my uncle. I want to thank Coach Saban, Coach G, Bryce, Will for accepting me. Since I've been here, it felt like I've been here for 3 years. They welcomed me with open arms. It's been one of the best years of my life. I'm very appreciative of them. So with that being said, I'll be declaring for the 2003 NFL Draft.
All right. Thanks, Jahmyr. Bryce?
First and foremost, I'd like to thank God. Without him, none of this is possible, and through him, I can do all things. I'd like to thank my family, my parents, my mom, my dad, and the rest of my family and everyone who supported me. I'd like to give a huge thanks to Coach Saban for always believing in me and the entire university, and a thank you to all the supporters, all the fans that helped, everyone in the building, my teammates, my brothers through all 3 years here, everyone that I've been able to play with and be around are the reason that I've been able to do what I have while I've been here. Also, to thank everyone, all my coaches, everyone who works here, everyone on the staff, and all facets. This has been, coming here was the best decision of my life. So I'm forever grateful for the University of Alabama, and all that, and everyone that's with them. And with that being said, I'll be declaring for the 2023 NFL Draft. Thank you, guys.
Okay, thanks, guys. That wraps up the formal part of this. We'll break these 3 players out and let you guys talk to them for a minute. We'll let Coach get back to work.
All right, so there you have it. You have Bryce Young, William Anderson, and Jahmyr Gibbs each declared for the NFL Draft. Kyle Henderson, BamaInsider.com. I have to tell you guys, I'm a little bit under the weather coming back from New Orleans. Picked up something down there, of course, down on who knows what it was, right? It was New Orleans, but Alabama wins the Sugar Bowl in convincing fashion. Hit the thumbs up, like, subscribe. I want to talk to you guys about a couple of things, revolving the draft and what we learned from the Sugar Bowl. And I think one of the things that the biggest takeaways for me was the players that opted in to play in the Sugar Bowl, right? You look at these particular players and these guys, and again, we'll have this coverage back on Bama Insider. We're going to recut some of these videos and have these videos back on Bama Insider. But you look at there was 4 quarterbacks that played, or 3 out of 4 quarterbacks played. So you have Bryce Young. Let me ask you, did he improve his stock? Absolutely, 1,000,000%. right, against Kansas State. CJ Stroud, did he improve his stock? 100% yes. And then same goes for Max Duggan for TCU, 100%. Now, Will Levis probably made the right call by not playing in the Sugar Bowl, or I'm sorry, not playing against Iowa. So those are the 4 quarterbacks that, when you look to playing or not playing. And you look to guys like William Anderson. I think the biggest thing with William Anderson was the fact that he said he wanted to continue to show that leadership for this team. And I really like the way that these guys went out and played as a team. Jahmyr Gibbs, another guy that's certainly going to go off in the draft, and a guy who has a ton of upside. I mean, you look at the speed, the power, not necessarily the overall size, but I think he's going to be a menace inside for the NFL. I mean, I think Bryce Young, when you look at what he's been able to do and to see his growth, I mean, it's amazing to see that these guys are already leaving Alabama. So when you look to next year, I want to get your take inside the comment box. What's up, Dean? Dean's like, you're like me, sharing. Yo, it was crazy. I mean, I just, so what was crazy is I've been sick a couple times. Every single bowl almost, I'll pick up something, whatever. When you look to next season, and Jimmy Stein has this on Bama Insider, let's kind of look at the roster management and kind of look to how things are coming. So you have Jalen Milroe coming back at quarterback / Ty Simpson. The running back, I think, Jace McClellan, I've been a huge fan of Jace McClellan. And how about the run at the end of the game by Jahmyr Miller? I mean, I'm a huge fan of that young man as well. Burton's coming back. You have who else do you think in terms of we're gonna get Jimmy to join us as well. Give me 1 second. Who in terms of like the wide receivers who are going to stand out for Alabama, who do you think those guys are going to be this coming season for Alabama? I mean, it's crazy to think like this coming season. What's up, Jeff Stapleton? I see you. And Coach Saban said something else. He said that there could be a couple other players declaring for the NFL draft. Who do you think that will be? Maybe Eli Ricks. There was a lot of smoke that said that he could potentially be one of those guys. But, Ja'Cory Brooks coming back, maybe Malik Benson, the junior college transfer that's coming in. CJ Dupree is the tight end. I thought that Cameron Latou had his best game against Kansas State. I didn't think he had the best season overall, Cam Latou, but I'm glad that he did have a good game against Kansas State. I think he improved his draft status. Left tackle, J.C. Latham, Caden Proctor, big boy at the guard position. And this is coming from our team expert, Jimmy Stein. You can read this on Bama Insider. Seth McLaughlin at the center position has a lot of experience. Tyler Booker, Elijah Pritchett. So just kind of spitballing there from the offensive side. Hit the thumbs up, like, and subscribe. Of course, we'll have all this wrapped up back on Bama Insider. And we'll recut some of these videos so you guys can check them out. On the defensive side, what do you think is going to go down for Alabama? When you look to Alabama's defense and kind of who's moving out, who's moving in, Justin Ebogbe, it's amazing to think that he's still coming back, right? Like, he has a lot of experience. I've always been a fan of Justin Ebogbe. I think he's a monster. I think he could have a huge, he's looks like we got Jimmy coming on. Jimmy, what's up?
Hey.
I'm running through your list of guys, of your early look for next season. I was telling them to go check it out on Bama Insider. We kind of rolled through the offense. We're looking at the defense. Now, tell me this, Jimmy. When you look at this team, I've been a fan of Justin Ebogbe for a long time. I think he could be one of the top players in college football. It kind of hands in the dirt next year. When you look to this defense, guys who are returning, Jaheim Otis, Tim Smith, Dallas Turner. I'm a huge fan of Deontay Lawson. I think he had a monster game in the Sugar Bowl. Tell me about, maybe some mixes and matches that could be coming up for 2023 as we look to way too early position battles before even spring football.
Yeah, almost. Hey, I sort of, did that lineup this morning without a ton of thought into it because it's just so early. As we know from the press conference that just happened, there's players leaving the team. There could be a surprise or two that stays. There could be a surprise or two that goes. Then you got the transfer portal, spring practice. You got another transfer portal window after the spring. So, it's just for fun to like, okay, well, based on what we got now or what we think we're going to have, this is what it looks like. And I'm excited about that lineup, Kyle, especially on defense. Like you said, Justin Ebogbe is a guy that we can't be certain he's coming back due to the uncertainty about his health, right? I mean, he's got the neck injury, but I'll say based on what I know right now, I think he'll be back. I believe he will be. We don't know that he won't be, so I'm going to be optimistic, and I believe that he will be. And he was playing great, Kyle, before he had to call it off for the season. He was really one of our best defensive linemen when he went down, and hopefully he'll resume playing and pick up right where he left off. The defensive line group. I just went over a starting lineup, Kyle, but actually the depth on the defensive line is very good because not only do you have those 3 projected starters that I put on the board of Boygby, Tim Smith, and Jaheim Otis. You also have Jamil Burrows. You have Damon Payne, who played a ton in the Sugar Bowl. Jahmyr and Latham playing quite a bit with the first team. So the depth is great. And some stars. The real star power to me, though, Kyle, is Kool-Aid McKinstry and Dallas Turner. I think we will see Kool-Aid and Dallas Turner on just about every preseason All-American team this summer once the magazines hit the newsstands.
Here with Jimmy Stein of Bama Insider. Hit the thumbs up, like, subscribe. Coming to you from Tuscaloosa, Alabama. As you can see in the top left screen, that is live from the Mount Moore Center as Jahmyr Gibbs, Will Anderson, and Bryce Young have declared for the NFL draft. Coach Saban said that there could be a couple other players that do make an early declare for the NFL draft. So we'll keep you posted on Bama Insider. Jimmy, when we kind of float back and get some thoughts from the Sugar Bowl, it was amazing to see a player like Bryce Young really, come in and take this offense. And I thought he improved his draft status. So did CJ Stroud, and so did Max Duggan. Your take on Bryce and what he did in the Sugar Bowl, it was really impressive. And he had that long throw that was kind of off in the early part of the game. And then after that, it was electric to see just kind of the ball placement from Bryce Young against Kansas State. He
played fantastic. It was a kind of a sputtering start. I think he was 1 for his first 4, and a couple of his incompletions were pretty bad. And it was fair at that point to go, I mean, is the shoulder okay? What's happening out there? And then, boy, it's like the light came on, and then Bryce was all of a sudden playing as well as he has in his entire career at Alabama. I think in terms of the draft, he solidified himself as the quarterback number 1, which probably means you're the first pick. I think he completely proved that there is a gap between Bryce and everyone else. And there are other quarterbacks who are likely first-round picks, like C.J. Stroud, like Will Levis. There's other guys that will go in round 1. They're not nearly as good or talented as Bryce, and despite his size. And it's going to be interesting. We're going to hear that, guys. I mean, that is something that when you watch NFL Network or wherever you get your draft news between now and April, you will constantly hear that there's never been a quarterback his size taken number 1. Now, a lot of people say, Baker Mayfield's barely 6 foot, Drew Brees barely 6 foot, Russell Wilson, but Bryce is thinner than those guys. He's not just shorter, he's thinner. There's never been a quarterback with his dimensions taken number 1, or probably not even in the first round ever. So we're going to hear that, and it's fair to discuss it, and it's fair to discuss, what that means in terms of his NFL career. But his talent is so ridiculous. His intangibles are off the charts. We all know at Alabama, I bet, Kyle, all of us at Alabama feel like NFL teams would be fools for passing on Bryce. That's how we're going to feel because we're the ones that have seen every snap, every play. I think the world of that guy. He's one of my all-time favorite Alabama athletes. And partly that's what he did on the field, and partly it's because of what he means off the field. Coach Saban alluded to this in the press conference this morning, Kyle. I think Bryce's impact on the sport has been huge, and his decision to play in the bowl game is going to influence next year's group of players, not just at Alabama, but all over college football. Bryce may have played some small part in saving the bowl games. Yeah. So I think that's interesting.
Here with Jimmy Stein, a Bama Insider, part of the Bama Insider team. We got a whole slew of the teams. Coming to you from Tuscaloosa, Alabama, as Bryce Young, William Anderson, Jahmyr Gibbs have declared early for the NFL draft. Jimmy, if you had to guess to maybe, other players that declare at some point, I mean, a lot of people inside the comment box talking about Brian Branch, and Brian Branch, every game you watch for Alabama, and thank you very much for the super chat, Jarvis. It seems like Brian Branch is everywhere. I mean, do you think that, somewhere within the next few days, Brian Branch, after talking to his people, talking to Coach Saban, could be one of those guys? Could it be Eli Ricks? What else are you kind of thinking in terms of a player? We're just estimated guesses out here, guys that could potentially leave early from this year's squad.
Yeah, I got my eyes on a couple of guys outside of what was announced today. And first and foremost, that's Brian Branch. I think he has a real difficult decision, Kyle, because you can make a really good case for him leaving now, and that would be the smart thing for him to do. You can make a good case that coming back is smart. But one thing, my guess right now, if we're guessing at this moment, is that Branch will come out and declare and enter the draft. That's my guess. But I said as far back as September when we were discussing this on the Bama Insider message board, Brian fits the profile of guys that do come back. And by that, I mean, a year ago, I predicted Jordan Battle wouldn't enter the draft, that he would stay in school.
Uh-huh.
And I think Branch is similar to Battle in this way. First of all, the kid does really well in school. That's a factor. Some kids who really struggle at school aren't good at school, that don't like school. They're kids that leave if they're projected to go high in the draft, of course. But the kids that do really well in school, that enjoy it, and they're good at the academic side of things, a lot of those kids, I don't hate it here. I like going to class. I like learning this stuff. Branch is sort of like that. He's good grades, good kid. And he plays a position like Battle. Battle's a safety. Branch projected to be a safety in the draft, even though most of his play at Alabama has been at that nickel corner spot. But Branch, again, plays that safety position. They're not a highly valued position in the draft. It's rare that a safety goes really high. Normally there's only one, maybe two safeties at best in the first round. That doesn't give him a lot of cushion in terms of where, he'll go. So I think Branch fits the profile of kids that come back. Probably won't be pushed by his family to come out. I think he just will make his own decision. So I'm not going to be shocked either way, but my guess is that Branch enters the draft and is the first safety taken and would be a middle to late first round pick.
Jimmy, when we look to this defense, you look to the secondary, they returned a ton of guys to this season. And now, you put together a way too early kind of look at the defense. You can read that back on Bama Insider. You got Kool-Aid back there, Malachi Moore, Christian Story, Caleb Downs, Eli Ricks. You have, him highlighted in bold. What do you think about this secondary? And we talked about Kool-Aid. Tell me your thoughts on Malachi Moore. I mean, because that's kind of been one of the names that people have been waiting for at Alabama. And there's this, I don't know, with him and Branch kind of, rotating time. And then at one point it was Malachi, and then Branch retook that. So your thoughts on kind of when you look to that secondary position, how it could shape up, now we're starting the new year.
Well, assuming Eli Ricks comes back, he's another one that's got a decision, stay or go. I believe Ricks is going to stay. I believe that. I don't have information that that's true. I don't know that he's made a final decision just yet, but I believe he's leaning to staying, which would be great. So if Ricks comes back, now you got both starting cornerbacks returning. Kool-Aid McKinstry and Eli Ricks, both returning starters, star players. We'll finally get to see Ricks with a full year of knowing the scheme, being healthy. I think there's no question those would be your two starting corners. And Malachi is really interesting, Kyle, because he's played so much and has so much experience. He'll be out there. Yep. I mean, he's got to. He's played 1 million snaps. Yeah. Now, will he be at the Brian Branch spot, that nickel corner, or will he be more of a full-time safety? Yep. That's going to be the question. But I expect him to be starting at one of those two positions. He's just really experienced. The thing that's strange about his career a little bit, or he has a little different career arc than most, is here's a guy who's going to be a senior who had his best year as a freshman. I mean, when he was a freshman, he burst onto the scene. He was compared by everyone to the Honey Badger, including the Honey Badger himself, who once tweeted, "Gosh, that kid plays a lot like I do." That's how famous and how he really burst onto the scene. But as a sophomore and as a junior, his role was diminished. He played less. He was less impactful, but we saw him out there quite a bit. He's not a guy, Kyle, that gets beat a lot. He's not a guy like, that you're like, oh gosh, Malachi just gave up another place. It's not like that at all. But considering the amount of snaps he's played, I'm sure the staff would like to see him make more plays than he has these past couple of seasons. So it'll be interesting to see where he ends up, Kyle. But I do think that Malachi is a shoo-in, frankly, to be a starter at one of the positions, even if it's just money like he did this season. But Malachi will be out there. His experience is huge. He will be the leader of that DB room.
We have Jimmy Stein to your bottom right, and we also welcome in Clint Lamb. Clint Lamb, part of the Bama Insider team. I'm telling you, we got a whole we got a team here at Bama Insider. So I'm coming to you from Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Picked up something in New Orleans. I don't know if it was like the flu or whatever it is, but I'm okay. It's Monday. I'm entering the new year. You can't drag me down. Jahmyr Gibbs, Bryce Young, William Anderson have declared for the NFL draft. Clint Lamb was also in New Orleans. Clint, you look good, man. Doesn't look like you were on Bourbon Street too much, and you look like you've been solid. Look, I'm going to piss everybody off with this next question. I want one of you guys to play devil's advocate. Jimmy, you're going to play devil's advocate. Clint, you're going to play the good guy. Okay, Clint, why doesn't, and this isn't your take, but this is how we're going to set up this next part. Why doesn't Alabama take a quarterback from the transfer portal? And Jimmy, you know what I'm going to ask you next. So Clint, why doesn't Alabama take a transfer at quarterback going into the season?
Well, there's two ways to look at it. If you're going to the portal for a quarterback, Alabama really at every position, they've been pretty vocal about they want to add starters. They don't want to add depth. And you don't necessarily know that a quarterback that you add, especially if you don't have a lot of, high praise for anybody that's in the portal right now, you might be looking at a situation where you bring a guy in just to be depth. And a lot of these guys who enter the transfer portal, they don't want to be depth. There's a reason they're in there in the first place. The Gardner Minshew's of the world, that was a guy who was going to come to Alabama and simply be the number 3 behind Jalen Hurts and Tua Tagovailoa. But then he had an opportunity to go and play elsewhere under Mike Leach at Washington State. So anybody that's going to be worth adding in the portal, they're going to want opportunities to start. And you might give them the chance to come in and compete. But I think right now you've already got two guys, and what you don't want to do is they already know your system. They're both two very talented players. You bring in a guy that you don't know his personality. You're going to expect him to be probably the leader of your football team, being the quarterback. And, if he doesn't mesh with the locker room or he doesn't bring that Alabama mentality, one of those other two guys who already kind of know what to expect and stuff, one of them might choose to leave. They might get upset. So I think right now the smartest thing you could possibly do is wait until spring, see how the quarterback battle's playing out. And then, if something happens with one of those two players, one of them chooses to leave, maybe you bring somebody else in. But I think at this point, unless you get a Drake May caliber player, a Caleb Williams caliber player in the portal, there's no point in adding anybody right now.
All right, that's Clint Lamb of Bama Insider. That's his take. Now, this isn't necessarily what the guys think. They might think something else, but I'm asking them, kind of setting it up. All right, Jimmy, so you tell me why Alabama would take a transfer quarterback. Again, it's not what Jimmy thinks, but I'm setting it up. People are asking about it, so let's talk about it. Jimmy, go ahead.
Yeah, you're right. It's not what I think, but but I can make a case for it. Because there is a case. There is a case to be made. And that is Alabama has very little experience at the position. I would say it's fair to say that the number 2 quarterback that played this year when he got his opportunity did not play great in all facets. I think it's fair to question how good of a passer he can be. He clearly needs a lot of development in that area. So that's number 1. Number 2 is the other guy, Ty Simpson, who's been around, has played next to zero. And perhaps in the portal, you can go get an experienced guy. It's going to be a good team. Stetson Bennett, I think at Georgia, has shown first and foremost that having a lot of experience and being a leader out there means a lot. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to be a first-round pick to be a highly successful quarterback in college football. Stetson's not going in the first round, yet he may have 2 national championships by this time next week. So I think getting more experience in the top position would be a big reason. And number 2, Clint alluded to it. Ty Simpson and Jalen Milroe are going to battle it out this spring. It could
Yeah.
be if one or the other feels like they're behind,
Mhm.
particularly the older kid. Milroe's older than Ty. If
Mhm.
he feels like I'm behind Ty, he may leave. And you do not want to go into next fall with the veteran quarterback being a redshirt freshman. So you better develop some communication with quarterbacks that are out there, because you don't want a Jalen Milroe to leave. And now you have literally 3 freshman quarterbacks, a redshirt freshman and 2 true freshmen. So I think it's important myself for Alabama to have a line of communication with quarterbacks that are in the portal,
Mhm.
just in what I would call break glass in case of emergency, because there could be an emergency. But that said, I think Ty's going to be great. I think Jalen Milroe has a chance to be great, and the other 2 guys will develop at their own pace. And I think with 4 scholarship quarterbacks, there's not an emergency, certainly not one right now.
Well, the one thing that I wanted to add to that, I think you already saw it start with the depth chart that was released for the Sugar Bowl. It was Jalen Milroe or Ty Simpson. All season he had been working behind him as the number 3. Alabama right now wants to make sure they both understand they're in this competition, and I think you're going to go the entire spring. Nick Saban will want to draw this quarterback battle out as long as he possibly can. It's unfortunate, you want to be upfront with guys, but as long as it's relatively close, you want to make sure that if you can drag it out until late into fall camp, your chances of keeping both players on the roster, regardless of who ends up losing, becomes a lot, you have a much better chance of making that happen. So if you're a fan hoping that Ty Simpson or Jalen Milroe gets, hit with the starting label sometime in the spring or summer, I highly doubt it's going to happen. You're already seeing them making sure they both understand that they're kind of on even playing fields right now.
And I want everyone to remember this. There was a time where nobody wanted Mac Jones to see the field at Alabama. There was a time that people wanted Bryce Young to start over Mac Jones at Alabama. There was a time where when Mac Jones got on the field, people were like, this dude sucks. This dude isn't it. And there was a lot of people on board that were like, you know what? That's right. We got to get another quarterback in, blah, blah, blah. Mac Jones took his time. He developed. He stayed in the system. Everybody knows. Remember, there was that clip where Mac Jones broke down every single Missouri defensive player by number. That was one of the most influential picks that we saw from like a video standpoint. And Mac Jones came with it, had one of the most efficient seasons ever at the quarterback position. I'm not going to ask you guys out there who your favorite quarterback is, Mac Jones, Tua, Jalen, or Bryce. That's another video for another time. But when you look to the preparation that Mac Jones had and the work that he put in, it was really incredible to see him come, take a hold of that team. That team was absolutely loaded, one of Alabama's best teams. Too bad not a lot of people could see it because they coasted through the perfect season. But don't lose sight, because these guys do make progression year over year. Here with Clint Lamb and Jimmy Stein, both of BamaInsider.com. Hit the thumbs up, like, subscribe. We appreciate you guys coming to you from beautiful Tuscaloosa, Alabama. January 2nd. I hope you guys have started out your new year on the right foot. Thank you for joining us. And remember, hit the thumbs up, like, subscribe. We appreciate you guys being part of our 85,000 subs or whatever we have on here. All right, I got another question for you guys. We'll probably break out here after this. I think we're gonna, we have Monday Night Quarterback too, so we don't stop here on Bama Insider. Okay, so I'm gonna start with you this time, Jimmy, and then go back to you, Clint. Who will Alabama's 1-2 punch be at the running back position in 2023? Now, this is so far out here that I mean, look, but we talk football, and that's what we do. Jace McClellan, a baller. Everything that he has, I've liked him since the minute he showed up. Jahmyr Miller, that run that he had late in the game in the Sugar Bowl, very impressive. You also have Roydale Williams. It's a loaded Alabama running back room. Jimmy, who is Alabama's 1-2 punch at the running back position way out as we start the new year?
Yeah, what a fun question. First of all, those 2 true freshmen, Justice Haynes and Richard Young, they have all the upside in the world. And I think once they learn the system, get the playbook down, learn the small things, picking up blitzes, catching the ball, running routes, once they learn all that, there's no telling how good those guys could be. But the good news is, because Alabama has 3 guys returning, those guys can develop at their own pace. I won't be shocked if they earn a role. I won't be shocked if there's some injuries and they end up having to play and proving to be stars early in their career. But for now, I just put them on the shelf and they develop at their own pace. That leaves the other 3. I think Jace McClellan is most certainly 1 or 2 in the 1-2 punch, as you put it, Kyle.
Mhm.
He's 1 or 2, probably 1 with his experience. I think Jace is a really good player. Reminds me a little bit of Kenyon Drake. Reminds me a little bit of the guys replacing Jahmyr Gibbs because he's so good catching the ball and such a threat as a pass receiver. He's also a home run hitter like Gibbs. I mean, as he showed in the Texas game. I think, interestingly, this is where I feel a little different. I'm interested to see if Clint agrees or not. I think if there's a 1-2 punch, I think it's going to be Jace and Jamarian Miller. I think Miller is a great complement to Jace because he's a different back, bigger, stronger, between the tackles guy, or he can be. A little less experience for sure, but I see Jace and Jamarian Miller as 1-2 with Roy Dell being what I would call a role player. Maybe Roy Dell on short yardage, maybe Roy Dell at the goal line. Roy Dell reminds me of Roy Upchurch quite a bit, who was sort of playing this role for Alabama back in like 2009 as a third back, a third down back, really good at picking up blitzes. There's some things that Roy Dell does really well, but I'm not sure Roy Dell's going to do the every down stuff as good as Jace and Jamarian do it. So I see as Jace and Jamarian as the answer to your question, with Roy Dell playing a utility role and also a big role in special teams, with Haynes and Young just being able to progress at their own pace, assuming everyone stays healthy.
What you got, Clint?
Man, this is going to be one of the toughest questions to answer. And the reason being is I'm not entirely sure it's like a true 1-2 punch, right? I mean, it could be a 1-2-3 punch. In fact, I think that's a lot more likely. Now, granted, this year it was, you got some Roydell Williams sprinkled in there. There were some performances where you kind of had to go to him because Jahmyr Gibbs got hurt. But for the most part, it was Jace McClellan and it was Jahmyr Gibbs. Did Alabama convince 2 of the top 4 running backs in the country to come to Alabama and then pretty much be RB4, RB3, RB5? I mean, it is entirely possible. I'm just saying that is very impressive to be able to convince two different guys, very talented players who could pretty much walk into any backfield and be the lead guy, much less, not really be super involved in the rotation. So I would assume that at some point, and it might be one of those Najee Harris situations where it's down the stretch, you start getting one or maybe both of those guys involved. In the beginning here, the reason I'm having such a hard time is I think arguments can be made for all of them. Jace is certainly going to be in that conversation because he was in that conversation this year. I think Jamarian Miller is a heck of a player. Every time he's got an opportunity, he's performed, and you expect him to only get better. I mean, he was a true freshman, so you would expect positive, growth and development. So if that continues, I would think that he could certainly get involved in the competition. And as much as I love Roydell, and anybody that's, followed my work, I'm a huge fan. He's the guy that I'm starting to wonder for different reasons. Is he going to become the Trey Sanders, right? Where it's like Trey Sanders, when he was given opportunities, despite the injury, he was pretty effective, but there was just so many mouths to feed in that backfield. Alabama really couldn't get him on the field. And I mean, from a pass protection standpoint, I think Roydell's got a little bit, in that area where maybe he can not only develop, but I also think there's some traits there that are pretty likable. So maybe he's a third down guy, because Jace and Jahmyr Gibbs, both of them kind of struggled in that area this season. And you really need to have a running back there that can keep your quarterback upright and know exactly who he needs to pick up and things like that. So, I think going into the spring, if you had to say the top 2 guys on the depth chart and who you think it's going to be, I think it'll be Jace McClellan and Roydell Williams and how it's listed. But I think Jamarian Miller certainly deserves more touches. And I just don't know what the approach or the mentality is going to be from those 2 true freshmen, which is why I think this is such a difficult question to answer right now.
All right. Well, good stuff, fellas. Well, earlier in the video, and we're going to re-chop it up, you had Bryce Young, you had William Anderson, and Jahmyr Gibbs all declared for the NFL draft. Full coverage back on Bama Insider. Stay tuned. Coach Saban said there could be other players that do make announcements. We talked with Jimmy about that. We talked about, should Alabama take a quarterback from the transfer portal? Why and why not? We talked about Alabama's potential 1-2-3 punch at the running back position. We don't stop talking football here on Bama Insider. And of course, you got a pretty good basketball team. So go check out the coverage for the basketball team. We're going to have an opportunity with Nate Oates today as Alabama gears up for another basketball game at Ole Miss. Plus now on tap. So tons of coverage back on Bama Insider. Clint, thank you very much for joining me. Same thing for Jimmy Stein. You can check out all their great work along with Joseph Hastings and Andrew Bone back on BamaInsider.com. Definitely some great promos to go check out. Way to start out the new year. Coming to you from beautiful Tuscaloosa, Alabama. This is the BamaInsider.com crew coming to you after some early declarations for the NFL draft. And we'll catch you next time right here on Bama Insider.